Welcome again to another edition of Beyond the Shelf with OPL. I'm Jenny.
And I am Dawn.
Thanks for joining us again. As we say every time, we're very excited to be here and have you here with us. And today's topic is a lot of fun.
We are going to talk about fandoms. Jenny, do you know what fandom means?
No, Dawn, why don't you tell me?
So fandom is kind of a mashup word, but it's really a group of fans or a group of people who are fans of a particular thing, whether that's a TV show, a movie, music groups, even a book. Instead of like a kingdom, it's a kingdom of fans of fandom.
Are you a fan of any particular thing? Like when somebody says, what are you a big fan of? I bet I know what you're going to say.
What am I going to say?
You're going to say Supernatural.
I am going to say Supernatural. I am a very big fan of Supernatural. And so one of the fun things about fandoms is a lot of times they have like a name for themselves. For Supernatural, it's the SPN family.
SPN?
Yes.
Which is short for Supernatural, I take it?
It is. It is. A big part of the show is about family, and so the group of fans together call themselves a family, which is just so beautiful.
I'll give you a moment.
Thank you.
I was a huge fan of the television show Psych, and as fans, we were called psychos. So, that's fun. And then there was another show we enjoyed watching called Veronica Mars, and those people were called marshmallows.
Oh,
so
I thought you were going to say Martians.
That would have been fun, but marshmallows actually went along with some things that happened in the show, so it was a lot of fun too. Right. But I'm a big fan of a lot of things, television, movies, books, but I've never been a person that necessarily follows the fans like some people do. Like, did you ever take the opportunity and try and go to like a Comic-Con where Supernatural would have been featured?
That is on my bucket list to go to a Comic-Con. They have panels with like the actors, and I've seen lots of videos on YouTube of the actors. Some of them even like sing and have bands that perform too. And it's just like another little nerdy way to enjoy that in this case show a little bit beyond the show.
So what were the two guys, what are the actors' names? Jensen Ackles and
Jared Padalecki.
Jared Padalecki, I was introduced with Gilmore Girls because I was a Gilmore Girls watcher, and he played kind of I can't say it on the air, but I didn't like him a whole lot.
Was he a jerk?
Yeah, we'll use that word.
So the thing about, being a fan or a super fan is that you know little tidbits of things. So Jared Padalecki's character on Gilmore Girls was named Dean.
Yes.
But on Supernatural, it was his character's brother who was named Dean. So there's like just weird little tidbit tie-in things.
Is their last name Winchester?
It is.
Is that correct? I've never seen Supernatural. That's not true. I think I didn't read it because it's a TV show, but I believe I watched like the first 3 episodes, but my kids were little and it got a little too dark. And then I just never revisited it after 18 seasons?
15.
15 seasons. That's a lot. Yeah.
So I could make this whole episode about Supernatural. So let's not do that. Let's talk about some weird fandom related words. There was one that we were talking about just the other day that interestingly came from an Eminem song, and you don't often think about like some random word or name from a rapper's song that becomes a common language word. And this is really a new word in the past like maybe 5 years that's come up. So to be like a super fan, and you were saying possibly a stalker, people will say, oh, I stan that, or I'm a stan of so-and-so, instead of a fan. Stan referencing the guy who kind of stalked somebody in this Eminem song, right?
That's why I think the ST for stalker and the AN for fan, you mash them together and you get a stan. That just seems to make sense to me rather than super fan, because then that would be a Suan and that just wouldn't work.
Oh, man, right. I just say like I'm a fan or I'm a big fan of. But again, a generational thing. You'll definitely hear those younger people saying, okay, now you know what it means.
Yes, I have a cousin who recently told me her daughter uses the term chuggy. I'm like, what? And it's just basically she's saying that's very housewife white of you, Mom. And it's
Wow.
just chuggy. I don't know. I thought it sounded like a character from Star Wars a little bit, but that's not what it was. And so, yes, I learn new words all the time. Some are really, really odd.
Those kids coming up with their new words.
Those darn kids.
in any of your favorite shows or books or things, are there characters that absolutely 100% like are soulmates and belong together that you can think of immediately?
Yes, I'm a big fan of Friends, and I loved Monica and Chandler together.
Okay.
That was amazing when that happened, and I've watched a lot of videos and different things, and Friends is so old that it was filmed live. And when they revealed Chandler and Monica together, the audience lost their minds for like 5 to 10 minutes, and they had to cease taping until the audience could come back down to planet Earth because they were so excited about it.
That's amazing. I think that would very staunchly put Monica and Chandler into the OTP category, which stands for one true pairing. Those people who are like soulmates, and everybody, the fan base loses their mind over that couple because they belong together.
Yes, definitely. I also watched a show, it's kind of embarrassing to admit, but Vampire Diaries. And I'm watching it now probably for the 7th time through. And I'm always a sucker for the bad boy and the good girl getting together. So I always wanted Damon and Elena to get together. I was not a Stefan and Elena. They called them Stelenas. That was their ship name. I did not want them. I wanted Damon and Elena because he was the bad boy. I don't know. I just had a thing for bad boys and all the shows I watch.
So you actually just threw in another fandom term there, ship or shipping. They're the characters that you want to be together but maybe aren't together. And especially when there's like that love triangle thing happening, I totally ship them. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the celebrity mashup names, like when Brad and Angelina were together, they were Brangelina. Mm-hmm. And
Exactly.
Benifer for like... Now I just lost
Ben
it.
Affleck?
Ben Affleck and J-Lo. They were Benifer for a long time. Mm-hmm. They broke up, and they both got married. Some couple of them, one of them, multiple times, and now they're back together. But and I know people talk about Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston all the time, how they want them to get back together. They still are crazy for that sort of thing.
Right. We have to ship them. We got to ship, That ship has sailed sometimes.
Yeah, get over it.
Right. There's lots of other fandom words like canon to mean like something is officially a part of the story. And sometimes if there's like a show like Supernatural that was on for so long and the fans were so deep into it that they would be like, this is totally a thing that needs to happen. And then it would get written into the show, and then it was canon. That was a real part of the whole universe of that storyline. And sometimes, the fans make up their own canon, and then it's fanon because we have to mash even more words together. We can't just use regular words.
Have you ever been a person that has read or followed fan fiction at all when people decide they need to change the storyline of a book or, movie or whatever?
I have not gotten into fan fiction. Fan fiction is an interesting category because I think a lot of times it's known as being very steamy. And sometimes it's just people who are like, I really like these characters, so I'm going to write about them going to my high school. And then it's just, high school drama and not necessarily something very steamy. For example, 50 Shades of Grey, which is actually fan fiction of Twilight, which is interesting. I was never a big fan of Twilight personally. Yeah. But everybody loves what they love,
I did read Twilight and saw the movies. I did not do 50 Shades of Grey and don't plan to personally. And I didn't even know that was based on fan fiction for like probably several years till I found that out, and just blew me away. But I remember getting my nails done around the time my daughter was going to prom, and the lady doing my nails, we were talking about Twilight, and she goes, "Oh, she wrote that book for people like you, middle-aged white women." And I was like, "Oh, okay, thanks."
I mean, sometimes the authors got to know their audience when they're writing, and the screenwriters know their audience when they're writing the plots of the next episode of your favorite show. So they got to do what the people want, right?
I guess so.
So one of the fun things that we do here at Orville Public Library, we started last year in 2021 and we're doing again in 2022, is Fandom Week. We're taking a whole week. It's sort of a Comic-Con idea, but, shrunk down to OPL level. For Fandom Week, we kind of break down the fandoms or like the genres into 5 categories. But there's a lot of crossover to the categories. You don't have to be stuck into one or the other. So the first one is Caped Crusaders, which is all of your superheroes. Now, I know you have superhero fans in your family.
Oh, yes, and mostly MCU. Has to be Marvel. DC, you don't talk about a whole lot. But I have to share this story. Last year when Dawn was setting up for our Fandom Week, we had these cardboard cutouts of the Avengers, and she put them together, and she said, "Jenny, I just assembled the Avengers." And I laughed so hard. And then she told other people, and a lot of people didn't get it, but I got it thanks to my son, who is the hugest MCU fan ever. But I thought that was hilarious, Dawn. That was a year ago, and I still remember it.
That's one of my prouder moments, to be honest. I actually am kind of a DC fan. I never got into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I am a big fan of Wonder Woman and that whole storyline. But superheroes can be, more than Marvel and DC. I think those are the big camps that we think of. Even the little kids have I was going to say Teen Titans, but I think Teen Titans is like a DC thing.
Well, Power Rangers.
I absolutely adored the Power Rangers. And again, I talk about this a lot with generational things, but the Power Rangers changed a little bit every 10 years or something. And so for me, I'm the original Power Rangers or the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with those weird turtle suits in the movies.
Yeah.
My favorites. I have those on VHS at home.
I think PBS had a show called Captain Planet. Mm-hmm. Did you watch that?
Yes, Captain Planet. He's our hero.
Yes. That's great.
Superheroes can be a lot of different characters, even, if they're not the big name. If it's not Thor or Iron Man, the other heroes still have a place in our hearts. One of my favorite categories is space and time, which is really, it's just space travelers, time travelers. And when I say my favorite categories, I'm really looking at Doctor Who and Star Trek. I am a Trekkie. Now, does Star Wars have a fandom name?
I don't know. I honestly don't. I bet they do. I don't follow it closely enough to know. Mm-hmm. I don't know, maybe something to do with a Wookiee. I don't know.
Being the reference technician that I am, I researched this. I was trying to look up a whole bunch of fandom names, and Star Wars doesn't really have one.
I'd say it's because Star Wars is so cool. They don't need to have a little kitschy name. And when I say Star Wars, I do mean episodes 4, 5, and 6. The other 6 don't even exist in my mind.
But Star Wars, even in itself, kind of breaks down into the light side and the dark side. And I've seen people who are definitely more dark side, and they're Darth Vader and Darth Maul and really in that camp, where other people are all for the Jedis and the rebels and everything. So even within a fandom, you can have a breakdown like that. So yeah, Star Trek, definitely Trekkies. I remember watching The Next Generation when I was very, very small, and have since watched just about every Star Trek series there is at this point. I have not seen the original movies, and hot take, I don't like Captain Kirk.
I don't know who does really, but was Star Trek Next Generation, was that Picard? Mm-hmm. I watched that too. My husband's a Trekkie. The original. You know, he liked William Shatner. I think William Shatner needed a lot of assistance in learning how to act. That was me doing a terrible impersonation of him. He was not my favorite. I've seen him in other roles, and he's kind of funny, but I didn't love him as Star Trek. Although Star Trek did break ground where they had the first ever interracial couple kiss on television. So,
and that's one of the things I like about Star Trek is that because it does show this sort of like idealized future, that they break a lot of like social norms or like things that might be an issue now. They address those in really good ways. That's one of the things I really like about Star Trek. Now, have you ever watched Doctor Who?
I watched one episode and I did not like it at all.
Okay, so I have to know which doctor it was.
I think it was Tennant, and I think it was the episode with these angels that were crying, or
the weeping angels.
Yeah, I didn't like it. It was terrible to me. Sorry, I know that is an unpopular opinion.
To be fair, that episode is a little, I was going to go right in with a Whovian word, timey-wimey. There's a lot of weird time travel, like back and forth to understand the storyline in that one.
Oh, I did watch another episode. I forgot. Was there a Matt?
Matt Smith.
Yes, I watched an episode with him because James Corden was on it, and I like him. So I was like, I want to watch this episode, and I enjoyed that episode with him. I probably should revisit it again at some point. My son loves Doctor Who. He's a huge Doctor Who fan.
So talking about breakdowns of within a fandom, the Doctor Who fandom is called You're a Whovian. People very strongly have their favorite doctor. And of course, the doctor is referred to by like which regeneration he is, because the doctor like regenerates periodically, meaning that he changes like his whole appearance. And I say his, but the doctor actually, there are 2 regenerations of the doctor that are female. The species that they are, I guess, changes as needed. And it makes it interesting because like the Matt Smith era, because he was the youngest actor to ever play a doctor, brought in a lot of younger fans. And even David Tennant did too. So it's one of those shows that I feel like is constantly evolving because the actor is evolving and the character is evolving into different actors. So you can do lots of different things with that.
I have a question though. In The Grinch That Stole Christmas, and it took place in Whoville, were they called Whovians?
Maybe. No, I think they were just Who's from Whoville.
Just Who's. Okay.
I don't
just
know,
wondered.
I don't know where Dr. Seuss sits in the whole Doctor Who universe.
Right.
But maybe it's related.
Maybe.
You never know.
They're both doctors.
They're both. I wonder if they went to the same med school.
Could be. Probably have the same degree for sure.
Okay. I think I've mentioned before that fantasy is one of my favorite genres. So we call the fantasy category sword and sorcery, which I feel like is pretty applicable because you can't really have fantasy without swords or magic, right? Do you have any favorite fantasy stories?
I like Harry Potter. I didn't actually read Harry Potter till I was an adult.
Me too.
But I read those books so quickly, and it was amazing. I don't know. They're like 600, 800-page books, but they are such easy reads, and you just really can dive into those. So I would say in this genre, I liked probably Harry Potter the most.
I feel like J.K. Rowling kind of did a bait and switch on you with Harry Potter, because the first couple of books are pretty short. They're like 200 pages. And then she just progressively like adds a little bit more until like the last book is like 650 pages or something. Which when I was growing up, I was the same age as Harry each year as the books were coming out. But when I got to that 4th book, I was so intimidated by how thick it was that I was like, I am never going to finish this book. So I just stopped reading it. And I didn't actually pick up the Harry Potter series till about 6 or 7 years ago. Absolutely loved it. The characters. And even like as an adult, you have a different perspective as you're reading it.
Of course.
Yeah.
Now, what is your opinion on the movies?
I liked the movies. So I read through the books and then I made my husband watch the movies with me like a good wife does. And he would ask me like, was that like the book? Was this what was different here? So that was a fun conversation. And I did like the movies. I feel like at this point in this day and age, Harry Potter is like very ingrained into our culture. They're kind of a staple for a lot of people, the books and the movies. I also absolutely love the Chronicles of Narnia. I love the way that Lewis writes, and as a kid was a big fan of talking animals. So Narnia really appealed to me.
I like the Aslan, I think I'm saying that right, the character and how it has its roots in Christianity as well. And so I did enjoy that book. Or that series of books.
We could not talk about fantasy without talking about Dungeons and Dragons, so I've tried to play Dungeons and Dragons once, and my friend's daughter absolutely wanted to play with us, but she was like 4 years old at the time. So I was like, you can play with me. We'll play a character together. I don't know how much you know about Dungeons and Dragons. You create a character and then you go on this adventure, and there's one person who like leads the adventure. They're called the Dungeon Master. So the character that me and my friend's 4-year-old were 2 gnomes in a trench coat, basically. It was interesting because there was one part in the campaign where we were all jumping off of a cliff, like down to a river. And I was like, wait, what happens when 2 gnomes in a trench coat jump off a cliff? Which sounds like the start of a bad joke. And I don't have the end of that. Some other authors that you might think of for fantasy, though, Terry Pratchett.
You'd have to name something. It's not coming to my mind.
That's okay. Robert Jordan, who has the Wheel of Time series, which was adapted for TV on Amazon Prime. And then Brandon Sanderson is this author that so many people have been like, Dawn, I think you would like Brandon Sanderson. And I'm like, oh, okay. I've yet to pick up one of his books. But again, it's that fantasy genre, which is one of my favorites. I think you 100% are in the next category. Bookworms.
I do tend to read a lot. Yeah. And I'll tell you, when we were thinking about names for our podcast, I really wanted to be the ink drinkers, because in France, that's what they call a bookworm. And I just loved that. I just thought that was really cool, but no one else did. I guess I need to move to Paris. I don't know.
It doesn't really give me a great visual, ink drinkers.
Yeah, you're just like soaking up the word. I don't know. I liked it. I still like it.
Absorb the book by osmosis.
Yes.
But I think bookworms, literature lovers, people who really enjoy books, I don't even know where that term came from. Because actually it kind of sounds gross.
It does. I don't want to be a worm.
Would you rather be a book dragon?
Well, I don't know. I don't want to breathe fire and burn up all the paper. I don't know.
There are water dragons, but you don't want a water damaged book either.
No, that's just as bad. I think I'll just be a reader.
Okay. With this category, I think we often think of like the classics. We think of like Bronte and Austen and all those big names. But you can be a lover of even modern day books and be a bookworm.
Well, anytime you pick up a book and you read it, anytime you pick up any written word and you read it and you enjoy it, that's awesome. We have some patrons that come in and just get magazines. That's great. I don't care. I think it's wonderful that you're just coming in and you're finding something that you enjoy, and you're not going to be judged for it. It doesn't matter what your favorite genre is. It doesn't matter if you like a graphic novel or if you like a 1,000-page book. Like Count of Monte Cristo is a very long book. War and Peace is brutally long, but some people love it, and that's great. Charles Dickens, not a fan, but a lot of people really enjoy him. I did like not War and Peace, I'm sorry. I like Tale of Two Cities. That's about the only Dickens I've ever liked.
Charles Dickens is a man who loved a comma. The one thing I remember from reading his writing in high school was looking at a paragraph and realizing that the whole paragraph was one sentence with no less than 3 commas in it.
Yes, well, when Dickens was writing, he was writing for magazines, and he got paid by the word. So something that you and I could say in about 2 sentences, he could stretch into 2 chapters because he was getting paid for it. And I suppose if I were getting paid by the word, I would find a way to keep going and going and going like the Energizer Bunny.
You get really eloquent really quickly when you're being paid by the word, which we are not.
No.
Okay, the last category, screen fans, TVs, movies. I threw music in here. I think video games goes in here. My husband is a very big fan of The Legend of Zelda, specifically the Ocarina of Time, which coincidentally, Ocarina of Time and Twilight Princess have been made into manga. So if you want to read a video game plotline, it is possible.
Oh, that's so cool. Now, I've only ever played the original Legend of Zelda on an NES.
Yes.
And I loved it. Oh my gosh. And it was so much fun. And I have revisited it. I don't have an NES anymore. Sometimes I wish I still did because Zelda was my favorite. Zelda was so much better than Mario.
Those. That might be fighting words. Somebody in that Super Mario fandom is over here like, what? But I think one of the things about fandoms and the things that we enjoy is not taking joy away from others in the things that they enjoy. Like, you really like Friends. I think it's an okay show. But you also don't care for Supernatural, and right. I love it.
Right. And that's okay. I would never, like we just talked about books, you don't judge somebody on what they do or don't like. That's okay if we don't sit down and have an in-depth discussion about Friends, because Friends wasn't really developed for in-depth discussions. It was developed for mind-numbing humor. And and it is, and it's hilarious. What about movies? Do you have a movie that is like your go-to, like you're feeling down or you just want to laugh or maybe even cry?
If I had a movie to just sit down and watch, it would be The Fifth Element. It's just a story that's very familiar to me because I've seen the movie so many times. I can't even say what the appeal is to it. I have named several of my pets after characters from The Fifth Element. It's just the adventure and the whole like moral of it being that, you know, we can have all these other things essential to life, but the true thing that we all need is love. Which you don't think of in a Bruce Willis action movie, but that's really what it is.
It's very sci-fi, isn't it?
Oh, extremely, yeah.
So I've never watched. Sci-fi is not my favorite genre. Except I do enjoy Star Wars, but other than that, I haven't really gotten into sci-fi a whole lot. Although, and this has a huge fan base, Firefly.
Ah, yes. Brown coats.
Yes. Firefly. It's funny if you just would hear somebody talking about Firefly because they're described as like space cowboys, right?
It's a space western.
Right.
Yes.
That sounds like it has zero appeal to me. I'm glad I gave it a chance, though. I really enjoyed it. It was 13 episodes in a movie, but it still has stood the test of time. Mm-hmm. My son just introduced it to his wife for the first time this year, and she loved it. So it's just fun, and the characters, even the little song, was it A Man Called Jane? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we enjoy that one a lot.
I did not know that you enjoy Firefly so much. I do too. Oh, that just warms my heart. So Firefly being this TV show, but crosses over into like the space and time category as well. And like the Marvel heroes, it's also, they call it the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So these categories all like cross over in lots of fun, different, interesting ways. What we actually do for Fandom Week, since we've talked about the categories in length, we have activities. And we have cardboard cutouts, so if you want to come get your picture taken with like a 7-foot tall Chewbacca, you can do that. Also with the Avengers that I assembled, you can come do that too. And we do like to have a little fun competition. So we have some activities that you can do that you can put your name in for a drawing and win a prize related to that category too.
You know what we should do? We should drop a hint. So I don't know what that would be, but we'll have to think about that. And then that person,
I like it.
Maybe that person will just automatically win a prize of some sort because we know they listened.
A little Easter egg thrown
Yes.
in there. There's another fandom term for you.
Oh, yes. I love that. And one thing that we've always enjoyed doing, we love finding mistakes on TV shows and movies. There's a movie, I can't remember what it's called now, but it was a Patrick Swayze movie. It might have been Roadhouse. And so he's getting in a fight with somebody, and this person's getting ready to punch him in the face. And right before he makes contact, he has a bloody nose. So it's right before he punches him. So those kind of mistakes, we always enjoy finding those too. Even if it's a show that we love, we still enjoy finding those.
Okay, so here's an Easter egg for you. Which Star Wars movie is it where Han gets frozen in carbonite?
That would be the end of Empire Strikes Back.
Okay. So in Firefly, there's a scene where they're panning across like the engine room of Serenity, of the spaceship. And if you pause at just the right moment, you'll see Kaylee, one of the characters, in her hammock, and behind her is a little figurine of Han in carbonite.
Oh, that's awesome. I'll have to look into that.
Events that we have in October, the book club is meeting on the 13th, and this month they are reading Ariadne by Jennifer Saint.
On October 22nd from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., that is a Saturday, we will have our local artist event. So local artists will be here showing off their things. It could be
painting or sculpting, or I think somebody does like some paper crafts or card making is what someone was talking about recently.
It should be a lot of fun.
Speaking of fun, we have Trick or Treat at the library on Friday, October 28th. That's always great. We have multiple stations around the library so you can visit the different departments and kids get treats.
And they're welcome to dress in costume, but it's not required to get a treat.
Yeah, that's true.
And then also our big exciting thing will start on October 31st and go through November 5th, and that is our Fandom Week, which we just got done talking about in the episode. We will have all those different stations, and we hope you guys will come out and enjoy that day, that week. Come out every day or come out once and just take your time and go through every station and fill out the little games and crafts or whatever we have there available.
It'll be lots of fun. We have lots of activities planned for that. If you want to get all of this information in your email, you can subscribe to our newsletter. If you go to our website and scroll down to the bottom, there's a link to subscribe to the newsletter, which comes out quarterly, and we'll give you all the events that we have for adults, for children, for everybody. And there's always a little blib from our director as well, so it's a fun little thing. And if you don't want to subscribe to the newsletter, we do have a print version of it available at the library as well.
And is that at the information desk, Dawn?
It is.
Okay.
Thank you so much for listening. We can't wait to see you at the library sometime soon. So thank you again for listening to Beyond the Shelf with OPL.